welcome everybody to episode 4 of According to Andrew. Um, Thank you all, everybody who did turn in, if there's anyone there. I don't actually have anything to see if anyone's there, which is kind of interesting. Um, but I didn't really have much to talk about, but I wanted to keep doing this to kind of get in the habit of doing it. So here we are. Um, Obviously, the big news that has happened recently is the Ruth Bader Ginsberg death and the Supreme Court position opening again, and them trying to get a Supreme Court nomination through in record time, which will be very interesting to watch. Um, a couple notes on the whole stream thing. So, uh, my plan was to do a stream on Sunday, do the Nate and Andrew podcast again or not Sunday, Saturday. Uh, but Nate was doing something, or I couldn't get a hold of him. So that didn't work out, but that's okay. And then but hopefully we'll be a little bit more regular. Uh, but I will keep you guys in the loop. Anyway, Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, and this was kind of expected. She had been in poor health for a long time. There had been a lot of jokes about, um, like Weekend and Bernie type jokes, where the people were pretty sure she was actually already dead. Uh, and uh, and she, but anyway, they did officially say she passed away now, so that leaves a vacancy. Now, they want to get this passed through, and there's a lot of key reasons why they want to do this. So obviously, you don't. Last time around, the Democrats decided to risk it with Mitch McConnell saying, "We're not going to pick another uh, uh, person in an election year." Oh, missed a call. Uh, Hopefully that wasn't important. Let's get his actual quote. Let's see. Mitch. Ah, gosh dang it. Uh, do. Supreme Court. Do. All right. Come on, you can't just give me the freaking quote. This is annoying.
We'd fill it.
All right. So basically, he said, we want to wait for the election to happen before we fill the role. And obviously, this was right before the 2016 election, and that was a big deal. Merrick Garland was the person that didn't end up getting on the Supreme Court because of that, which he's probably very upset about. But it was a political gamble, and the current justification that they're saying is like because it's a lot of people are claiming hypocrisy. I kind of don't care because I just see it as beautiful power politics that they basically full 180 on this whole thing. But it's like it's politics. Get over it. Um, so I find it hilarious and awesome that they're just gonna be like, I don't care. We're in power, which we need more of from the Republicans because that's how the Democrats act, and uh, and that's why they were able to get like imagine if we had as much of an like how the heck did Ruth Bader Ginsburg even get on the Supreme Court? When was she nominated? Ginsburg nominated when and by who? I should have done this research ahead of time. Sorry guys. Uh So okay, so Bill Clinton put Ginsburg on the thing. Like, imagine someone being as right wing as she is left wing, and like someone trying to push that person onto the and actually right wing, not like this corporatist, warmongering neocon right wing, like a true nationalist type right wing. Like, imagine someone getting and like being like a true constitutionalist type person, like as extreme of a person as Ruth Bader Ginsburg is in the other direction. Like, never happens. Like, because they're just spineless and they're the group that's meant to lose kind of thing, which is, I know that's how it's supposed to be set up, but it's still kind of frustrating to see. But I mean, Trump's in there, so it's kind of nice to see somebody that is willing to at least punch back to a certain degree. Um, but like, so okay, so the problem with her death right now is you can't push through. Well, okay, first off, you have a ton of rhinos in the um, Senate, right? Republicans in name only, if you're not familiar with the acronym. Um, and the Democrat equivalent of that is dinos, apparently. I learned about that one recently. So, um, because like conservatives don't actually conserve anything, you're never gonna get an actual right wing person until you have like a full nationalist group in there, and so like you're stuck in this terrible situation where um, you could you have the ability to swing the court super hard the other way, but because of the political situation, you can't, right? Because you could potentially lose the votes, and then you have the Senate secured right now. Is it going to be secured after the election? Here's the thing. There's more Republican seats up for election this time around than Democrats. And that's one of the reasons the Republicans are able to hold on to their lead in the Senate at the midterms, was because there was more Democrats up for election. And so basically they only had to they held on to the ones that they had, and they only had to flip like one or two, and they ended up doing that. They ended up getting their lead, and actually gained like one or two seats. But I mean, some of those, like, not all Republicans are created equal, right? And so uh, you have some very wishy-washy, might as well be Democrat type Republicans in there, uh, that just aren't gonna get you someone that you really need. Like, I don't know if he'd be that contentious, but the dude who just wrote like the Pennsylvania ruling or whatever, that guy is. I'd be down for having that guy in there. He's pretty awesome. Um, but because of that, you're not going to get someone as strong. And I don't know what, like, I don't know the makeup of the Congress when Ruth Bader Ginsburg was appointed, but like, it's just so disappointing that they're able to like get these. It's like they're allowed all the wins and you're never allowed one, right? Like, and obviously the whole thing's kind of going to crap, and the court system's so messed up right now that it's a major problem. But uh, you know, baby steps, I guess, as they say. Um, though maybe that's not going to be enough. It remains to be seen. Um, but so yeah, so that's kind of the political landscape, right? You need the 51 votes. They were able to make it so you only need 51 votes because the Democrats were stupid, and they made it so that you can't filibuster nominations anymore, which they could have easily done for this. If And then you have the political landscape where they have to probably nominate someone who is, uh, or they're probably going to nominate this like Cuban lady. So you cover the Democrats' identitarian politics crap. Um, but is I don't know anything about like any of the people appointed and stuff. I haven't done like any research on them. I don't know their background, all that stuff. But having watched the Viva Free and Barnes podcast, which I recommend, um, Barnes is uh, says this lady's pretty good in her rulings, and just based on her background and stuff like that, has been pretty consistent with a lot of stuff. So, it's maybe not, it's not a 100% slam dunk win like we'd like, but it's something, right? Well, I don't know. Sometimes you got to say like, take your wins, and then the other half of the time you're like, well, if I accept these as wins, it's like, when do we get to actually winning, kind of thing. So it's kind of like one of those weird dynamics. But one of the questions that I had, and I'm not sure if I have the answer to, is uh, the interesting thing around the election. So obviously the Democrats have been trying to set up to make the election, like rig the election, and one of the reasons for that, or basically what they're trying to do is they're trying to do a bunch of mail-in ballots, and one of the questions that arises out of that is, can you count any ballots that come in after the day of the election? Like if they trickle in through the mail and they come in after November 3rd when the election is supposed to happen, should they be counted, and should they swing back the other way? Um, how it's set right now, it hasn't really been answered, but as far there was a couple seats that had initially gone Republican in where was it? California, I think, and then swung back Democrat, and I think it happened in Florida as well with that. And I'm sure people kind of remember all that seediness around like these ballots, and they were just popping up in random places, and it was very uh, dubious to say the least. Um, so so they want to get someone in there before this so they can have a hearing on this whole thing, and uh, and determine like, are those ballots that are coming in after election, will they count, kind of thing, and get that all sorted. And they want to get the new Supreme Court person on there because otherwise you could have a split decision of 4-4, which normally isn't a problem, except for um, except for the fact that Ruth Bader Ginsberg recently died. They probably didn't want to bring it up beforehand because um, a lot of the judges that have been appointed aren't philosophically consistent and aren't actually constitutionalists and stuff like that. And so um, you're going to have issues. Um, and so it's probably risky to bring it in front of them. So now you can get this person in there, but potentially have it be a safer bet. Um, you're doing this so that you have less political opposition, so you can get the thing through much, much easier without, like, it's hard for them to scream and wail like they did with Kavanaugh when it's like a Latina woman kind of thing. It like hits so many of their check boxes. Like, I'm sure they'll find a way. They always do to just like say your intersectionality stuff doesn't count, or you're just they'll say something like you're just doing this to try to cover up your racism or something really stupid. Um, so yeah. Uh, but then okay, so then the question becomes, what if this question doesn't get answered? What if like these ballots can keep coming in and keep coming in and keep coming in, and there isn't a clear, oh, and then like lawyers get involved, and there's like this whole legal battle over who won the election, and it's not sorted out by the time the electoral college is supposed to vote, which is, I was trying to look up the date and I couldn't find it. But I think it's like a month afterwards. So I think it's like December 3rd is when they actually vote. Uh and this battle, I mean, most court things take freaking forever. So like the idea that sure it would be expedited because of like timelines, but um I don't know. It's like, what do they do, right? Because like our votes don't actually matter, right? They're just supposed to vote in accordance, like we put our votes in, and then the electoral college is supposed to vote in accordance with what the people voted. But it's been shown in the past that like sometimes those electoral people don't actually vote for the correct person. They technically have the ability to vote for whoever they want. Obviously, it completely undermines the institution if they do that. But Democrats seem less and less keen on keeping these institutions as keeping the veneer of democracy over these institutions, which is really weird. I don't know why they think this is a good political gamble for them, or if they just something's off. Like it's either they think they have more political power than they do, and they're trying to push this stuff forward, and they think the veneer doesn't matter anymore because they just can seize the whole thing, or they have to do this because they have to expedite their process to seize full control because it might slip if they don't push now. It might the whole thing might slip out of their grasp, and that's maybe why they're so triggered by Donald Trump, right? Like it's a sign that things are swinging back the other way, and if they don't get complete control now, they never will. Uh, it's kind of like the turning point where, like, if the United States invaded Iran right now, we wouldn't win. Like, we needed to, like, if that was going to happen and it potentially be successful, or at least not cause the complete undermining and collapse of our country, uh, it needed to happen probably back when we invaded Iraq. Since it didn't, there's like we can't do it now, kind of thing. Um, and I think Democrats might be in a similar situation where it's like we have to rush this stuff because if it doesn't happen, like we're not prepared to do it now, but if we don't do it now, we're gonna lose everything, and that's why they're trying to put the genie back in the bottle with, um, what are they called? With like the internet and stuff like that, and all the censorship you see on social media sites, and that's why it's I'm really grateful for Vox and the whole unauthorized team and Social Galactic team for building an alternative, so that people can talk and communicate and stuff like that. It's very useful and helpful. Um, but yeah, it's an interesting dynamic. Like, what's the electoral college supposed to do if they're not like? Do they just get to decide who they want to vote for then? If it's unclear, and is that the person that wins? I, I don't know. It seems kind of odd. Maybe that election gets delayed. I doubt that would happen. um, and so I think the best thing to say and to do is to just be like, any votes that come in after the day of the election don't count, and that's just how it's going to have to be. And then in that case, it's going to be a clear-cut victory for Trump, which is good. And then the question, almost immediately after the election, is going to be, what happens after Trump? Because that's a big question. And 4 years seems like a long time, but like that shit flew. So like, that's a big question to answer. What's next? And generally, like as we've seen the pattern, it's generally gone Democrat, Republican, Democrat, Republican. This kind of alternating broke in the early 1900s, so we could have that happen again. And obviously, in the 40s, 30s and 40s with FDR, but that was like one guy, right? He was in there for 4 terms, uh, and so, well, they did break the mold. It wasn't. He also broke the mold of only serving 2 terms, and that was probably stopped after he left. uh, so, and I don't think I would want a third term of Trump. Like, Trump's great, right? But by the time I think he's 73 right now, he'll be 77 when he's done. Like, we've seen how bad Joe Biden is. Trump's a little bit younger than him, but like, I just think like after 2 terms that Trump's got a ton of energy and it's crazy, and maybe he could keep that kind of energy up till he's 90. It's possible, but I doubt it, and I think it's probably time once you're like pushing 80 to probably hand the keys off. So I think this works out pretty nicely. He couldn't have timed it better. Like he got in basically the last second he could have gotten in and probably been an effective, uh, been a become an effective president, um, with like the age thing. Um, so like if that rule got rid of, I don't I don't know if Trump would be as effective in a third term, or if the age would get to him. And I mean, that's a different person, and you know, we've seen in previous presidents where they usually age like a crazy amount, like they age like 4 times the rate or something like that, a normal person because of the amount of stress. And that doesn't seem to be happening to Trump. So maybe he'd be fine for 3 or 4 terms if that wasn't a restriction in place. But since that's not the case, the question becomes who comes after? And I don't know, man. Like, it kind of depends on what happens the next 4 years. Does the swamp actually get drained? Does a bunch of that stuff happen? And and if that does happen, okay, well then maybe we want a very effective young guy to step in and take the reins of this newly cleaned out system and kind of go hard at it and be able to maintain it. But that means you're going to need a very nationalist type person. You can't have someone that's civ nattery like Trump, as good as he is. um, I don't know if we're going to get that person. Uh, as the saying goes, yeah, what's next? Genocide? I can't do the Ben Shapiro voice. I'm sorry. Um, but Trump's a better president than the American people deserve, right? So it's like the likelihood that we get someone better after him and someone more like a more hardcore nationalist and not uh, having some of the civ nattery tendencies of Trump, the likelihood we get someone like that is super low. And I don't know, just how things swing back and forth, and as Texas is potentially going to be blue by the next election, like what? I don't know, man. I don't know what's gonna. Maybe the president goes blue and stays blue, but I don't know. Like in the early '90s or in like the 1920s, I think there was 3 or 4 presidents in a row that were Republican, and I think Coolidge only served 1 term, so I think it ended up being about uh, 5 or 6 terms because I think there might have been a couple that only served 1 term, but it was about 5 or 6 terms of Republicans. Um, and it's potential that we could have that again. But since World War II, it's pretty much just been back and forth, with the one exception being Reagan into Bush, but Bush only had the 1 term. So it was 12 years of one party. So, I don't know. I do not know. It's interesting to think about, though. It is interesting to think about. Um, I think that's all I have on this topic. I did ramble for much longer than I thought I was going to. I thought I was going to be like 5 minutes in, and I'm like, I'm out of shit to say. But turns out, if I want to talk about random things, I can talk about random things. Um, anyway, thanks for everybody who joined. Um, for those on YouTube, this is streamed on D Live when I post it on Social Galactic. Uh, I don't know how many of you aren't in both those circles that wouldn't get this. If you are on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe. Um, and I need to figure out an actual time I do these because I literally am just like I'm like I'm done reading for the day. It's blah blah blah. Like, throw a thing on there. We're going live in 5 minutes, and I boot it up. And so I should figure out a consistent time. And when I do that, I will let you know. Until that point, I've been Andrew, and this has been According to Andrew. And thank you guys for listening.